Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Strong Collectors Podcast. I'm your host, Dakota, and today we're going to be talking about Giant Man, or more specifically, the figures that can go along with your new Giant Man. We've been seeing in the Facebook groups that a lot of folks have been starting to get their HasLab in hand. Jordan should be getting his tomorrow. Maybe he already has it by the time you're watching this, but we've seen a lot of folks already putting this into their displays. It's been a long time coming, so you've had a lot of time to build up that area for Giant Man to fill. But in case you haven't, here's a list of some of those figures to accompany your Giant Man. Now, obviously, you can put him in your Avengers display. We're not going to go over every Avenger that you could be putting there. We're going to be focusing on other sized Ant-Mans, and then we're also going to look at some Wasps as well. So right off the bat, if you want your regular sized Ant-Man, the most budget-friendly option for this, and I was looking at these prices last week, so they could have fluctuated with more people getting Giant Man in hand. Maybe people are trying to accumulate these, so the prices may have adjusted slightly, but this should be around the prices you can expect. The most budget-friendly Ant-Man that's on the market right now is the Retro Ant-Man. So this is going to be about a $15 to $40-ish Ant-Man, depending on whether you want him loose or in box. Obviously, the looser side is going to be cheaper. If you want him mint on card, then you're going to be looking more at that $40-ish range on the high end. But for this, you're probably going to be displaying your Giant Man loose. I'm expecting you're probably going to want your figures loose to kind of show that growing effect, maybe. I think that'd be really cool. I've seen a couple pictures of that in the groups already. So your Ant-Man Retro is going to be your cheapest one. Find him for about $15. A cool part about that Ant-Man as well is he's going to come with a small version of the Wasp. So then you can even do the growing effects with her. Now, your next most budget-friendly Ant-Man is going to be going back to the Marvel Universe, the 3 3/4 line. This one is going to run you about $15 loose. Again, about the same price as the other Ant-Man, but now you're starting to get that growing effect. You've got the 3 3/4, you got your 6-inch, and then you've got your HasLab. So we still need to fill in that middle range. But before we do, let's stay within the 6-inch line first. We're going to go to the new Hank Pym, Giant Man, and Wasp 2-pack. This is one I'm just going to say, if you don't have it yet, you missed it. I would hold off and wait for something else to come out, because this one is going nuts in the secondary market. Jordan actually got a second one. He's going to go ahead and sell that. I was debating whether or not I wanted one or not. It's not even worth it. I just told him, sell it. You don't need to hold on to it for me, because this one, if you want it brand new in box, it's going to cost you about $150. Maybe a little bit less, maybe a little bit more, depending on the deal you can find. Maybe in the groups you could get somebody to give you a deal, but on eBay at least, I was seeing this as a pretty regular sale for $150. If they're loose, I believe the Ant-Man was going for about $50, and I think Wasp was going for maybe $60 to $80, because I think she's kind of the main one that people want in that pack. But still, to get your growing effect, this is the same costumed Ant-Man as Giant Man, so it helps with the growing effect. Again, I would probably just stick with more of an Ant-Man look, skip this Giant Man. Maybe they put out another one, but either way, $150 is not worth it for 2 figures. They're not going to be that good. But if you did want them, unfortunately, that's what you're going to have to pay. If you don't want the Retro, which I don't really love that amazing Pizza Spidey body, it's a little too skinny for me, I would maybe look more at the Astonishing Ant-Man. And this one's going to go about retail, 25, maybe 35, depending on where you find it. But this one is kind of my look for Ant-Man. If you were really paying attention or you were really thinking ahead, this one was going on pretty heavy clearance. You probably could have gotten him for, honestly, $5 loose several months ago. But now with Giant Man getting into people's hands, he's a little bit more sought after. You're going to have to pay a little bit more, but still probably not more than retail, especially if you get him loose. Let's switch over to Wasp. She's got a few different options. There's some good Toy Biz options for her from, what was that, the Mojo Wave. So those are good, but we've got better articulation and sculpting now. Your Retro Wasp, she's going to be a little bit more expensive than your Ant-Man. She's going to run about 35-ish loose and then 50 sealed. Again, you're probably going to be looking loose because we want to be displaying these with the HasLab. But the cool thing about that, if you get her complete, she should come with that little Ant-Man, so you can start putting the scales with Ant-Man as well. Ant-Man came with the little Wasp. Wasp came with a little Ant-Man. Let's say that's not your preferred look for Wasp. You don't want the 2-pack. You don't want to be spending that much, and you don't want the Retro. You also have the Ultron Build-A-Figure Wave Wasp. This one is still fairly cheap, $10. I think you can find her for that. I was seeing a lot more sales in the $25 range, but in the groups, I don't see her selling much more than 10 or 15. So a pretty cheap Wasp there. It's a cool looking suit. Now let's switch over to still Ant-Man, but we're going to go Goliath. This one is going to go way back to Toy Biz. This is, I think it was series 5, maybe. This Goliath is pretty limited in articulation, but again, you're probably just going to have him standing there to kind of fill out the display. Really, you probably don't even need him. The real seller for this, for me, is the small Ant-Man and Wasp. So these are really small figures, but they're pretty well articulated. I think they're almost as articulated as Goliath is. You've got elbow joints, knee joints. The new Hasbro ones are more like, they're smaller, but they're just statues. These ones are small and articulated, so I think that's a really cool selling point there. I think the Ant-Man's helmet may even come off. Don't quote me on that, but it might. So I think that one's a for sure. You should definitely pick that up. I think it's pretty rare to find that complete loose, so you're probably going to have to find a sealed one, unfortunately. But then you still get the fun of opening a Toy Biz figure. This one's gone up slightly. It's going to be about $30 loose if you can find it, but you're probably looking more at the $60 range. But anywhere in between there, if you can find it for under 60, it's a pretty good deal. I definitely would recommend that one. Probably out of all of these, that's in the like top 2 of what I would recommend. The number one thing, I think, if I had a HasLab Giant Man, which I don't have any room for him right now, living in a bus, got my bathroom here, beds there, sinks there. I can pretty much touch them all right now. So no room for a big HasLab yet. But I would say that you would definitely want your Toy Biz Giant Man still, even though the new HasLab is going to be better just for that growing effect. It's going to be a really good one to display. Very similar suits. This one has definitely come down in the aftermarket. I think when Jordan and I got back into collecting, it was around $300. It's about half that now. You can find them pretty easily for about $150, but anywhere in that $130 to $160 range is going to be a good deal for him. And I still think that's a great figure. I think it scales really well with your other Marvel Legends. I got smaller shelves you can kind of see behind me. I really like that Giant Man for the size with the 6-inch figures, but I've seen a lot of really cool displays with the HasLab already too. So both are going to work well. But if you want that growing effect, I think he's necessary. If you wanted to switch up and do maybe a different version of Giant Man with your Giant Man display, you could also go for the San Diego Comic-Con exclusive box set. And this one is going to fill out several in one box. In this one, you're going to be getting a larger Ant-Man, not quite as big as the Toy Biz, I don't believe, but in that similar size. And then you're going to be getting a Goliath as well as a Hank Pym. He's in his Ant-Man costume, but he's got the lab coat. Very similar to the 2-pack, but price-wise, it's about the same, but you're getting a lot more in this 2-pack. It comes with the removable helmet and the soft goods cape, or soft goods lab coat. You're also going to get a small version of Ant-Man and then a tiny version of Ant-Man. So a lot of growing effect just within this box to then add to your other figures that are also in the different sized scales. You can work them in, really go from absolutely tiny up to your giant HasLab. Also comes with a really cool box. This one is a little bit more expensive though. This one, again, not as expensive as the HasLab is going for, but it is going to be about a $160 to $200 if it's sealed. But I think this one is worth it just because of those little Ant-Mans, and then you still get that bigger figure. If you only want the Ant-Man versions, you could sell the bigger figure and then probably make a pretty good chunk of your money back just from selling the larger Ant-Man. If you're like, this isn't the costume I want, let it go, and then keep the smaller versions. Lastly, if you want to get Ant-Man outside of his costume, you can go the West Coast Avengers route. This came in the box set, which is pretty regularly on discount if you go on Amazon or other sites. I don't know if it's gotten down to the $50 mark yet, but it's probably not far off of that. But again, if you just want Ant-Man, you can buy him loose, probably around $25, maybe $35, somewhere in that range. Not much more than a retail figure. So that's going to be Hank Pym in kind of his jumpsuit look. To me, that doesn't really fit the look of the rest of these Ant-Mans. I'd rather have him in the Ant-Man costume and not really the jumpsuit. Or if he was going to be not Ant-Man, I'd rather be in like a lab coat look. But again, it's just another option if you wanted to get all the Hank Pyms available to you. This is another option. That's going to do it for all of the Ant-Mans, Giant Mans, Hank Pyms that I can think of. If I missed any, leave them in the comments below. If you got your HasLab We'd love to see your displays. Tag us on Instagram. We're going to be doing a listener call-in show soon to tell us your origin stories. So stay tuned for information about that. Make sure you're liking, sharing, and subscribing. And until next time, stay strong. Since Jordan's not even here, this is just for looks. This isn't even plugged into anything. Just a wire.